Can you get your data back? Can you get back up and running again? Will your systems operate? Can you recover from the disaster? Business continuity is about how do you keep operating? So the flood hits, the hurricane, whatever happens, cybersecurity event, how do you keep operating your business?
What happens to your business if something bad happens to it? A natural disaster, a storm, hardware malfunction, maybe even theft. We don't think it can happen to us, yet unforeseen events like these happen all the time. And sadly, they cripple or destroy companies that don't have a business continuity plan. Joining me to discuss how to create, implement, and test an effective business continuity plan is Ann Westerheim. She's the CEO of Ikaru, a prominent managed service provider here in the Boston area. Welcome, Ann.
All right, thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. I love talking about business continuity.
It's a big topic. And so why is
Yeah.
having a comprehensive business continuity plan beyond mere just emergency preparedness? Why is that critical for Boston area businesses?
Yeah, I mean, it's critical for any business. The idea that anything can happen, right? And it can disrupt the business. And these days, the big thing is cybersecurity. So a lot of folks that we talk to say, hey, we're not in a tornado zone. We're not, well, I don't know if there's tsunamis in the, I don't think we'll
Mhm.
get one in the Boston area, but people think of disaster as fires. I had a law firm talk to me, say, like, well, we never really thought we needed disaster recovery because we're on the second floor, so we're not going to flood and it's a brick building. But with what's going on in cybersecurity these days, it really demands attention.
And so what kinds of things do you see happening? Like, for example, yes, a tsunami probably won't hit, but there is a chance, many years ago, there was Hurricane Sandy, just about,
Yes,
a couple hundred miles south of Boston, and that just destroyed all of these businesses
yeah.
who had not planned. And so, what are some of those things that people should start taking into account?
Yeah, well, I think first of all, I think it's human psychology to think that nothing bad is going to happen and like, oh, that happened somewhere else. And one day it does happen. Uh, it's not a question of if, but when, and you need to be prepared. So really understanding what the critical functions of your business are. Like, what are the systems that your business really can't run without? And assuming it's never going to happen is just, that's not a strategy. You really have to go through the exercise of discovering what are my most important systems. If they're all down, inaccessible for any reason,
Mhm.
what am I going to do about it?
Yeah.
And that's really the starting point.
I live in Maryland, and I know, very tragically, not long ago, our one of the bridges, the Francis
Oh,
Scott Key Bridge, collapsed overnight. I mean, I've been on that bridge. We've seen like it just shut down
yeah,
traffic to
shocking.
the port, and so that affected many lives, many businesses who were just not even able to get in or out, and those types of activities can also hinder a business's ability to function. So business continuity goes beyond just making sure you've got a disaster recovery plan. It could involve remote work and lots of other factors too, right? So
Yeah.
can you explain the distinction between business continuity and disaster recovery and why both of these are really important?
Yeah, so disaster recovery is really a subset of business continuity. And disaster recovery is about can you, well, I mean, I'm always thinking about computers. Can you get your data back? Can you get back up and running again? Will your systems operate? So that's the can you recover from the disaster?
Mhm.
Business continuity is about how do you keep operating? So the flood hits, the hurricane, whatever happens, cybersecurity event, how do you keep operating your business? So all of us experienced COVID in the past few years, right? All of a sudden, in Massachusetts, there was a directive all around the country to everyone except for essential workers could not come to the office. Well, what do you do in that point? And IT firms like myself, I mean, there was a real mad scramble. Fortunately, a lot of our clients were already in the cloud. It makes it a little bit easier, but just think if you can't go in your office, what do you do? So that's business continuity. Can you keep operating?
And so let's talk about how you craft a comprehensive business continuity plan for your Boston area business. There's probably things you could put into a checklist that help people identify the first steps, next steps, and then doing things like a business continuity test to make sure things are actually in place in case something happens. So, can you walk me through that whole process?
Yeah, so first thing on the list is really understanding what do you have that you need to protect? What do you have that you need to run your business? So really understanding your critical business functions. Will invoicing be more important than processing payroll? All of your business systems provide different functions, and you do need to kind of think through what needs to be back up and running again the fastest. What do you need most? What's going to have the biggest impact to it? Really understand that, because you will have to make a choice. And a lot of people think, well, just get everything, we'll have everything running. Looking at what the risks are, because the protections or the plans that you put in place are pretty different. A hurricane, like a major hurricane like Hurricane Sandy, for example, that's then we all had to deal with COVID over the past year. Just think through what are the different risks. What if there's a crime in your building and the whole building gets sealed off by the police? Like really every different angle, really understand what the different risks are and what would you do in that case. And then, what are your recovery strategies from that? So, in some cases it might impact your physical workplace. Where are people going to work? Are they set up to work from home? Do you have a phone system that's going to support people working in different locations? Just communication plans, like who is going to be talking to people. So, just to give a little side note, we got a call from a local law firm in the Boston area that had been hit with a cyber event. And after that, like a lot of people, they say, okay, we're really going to step up our game. And they put in a lot more protections in place. But one of the things they described to me when they had this event in the past is that employees didn't know what to do. So some of the employees, the principals in the firm were really concerned about just maintaining relationships, communication with the clients, because you got to keep the business running, got to keep the clients, or they can go elsewhere. But the employees were also just wondering what's going on. Should I be putting my resume together? So a communication plan really has to look 360 around everything. What do you have in terms of IT and data backups? Are you backing up daily? Are you backing up every 15 minutes? Are you backing up weekly? Take a look at that. uh, do people have a place to work? Another thing to look at is supply chain. So
Mm.
for example, maybe the disaster doesn't happen to you, but maybe the disaster happens to one of the suppliers that you really depend on. Do you have an
Exactly.
alternate?
Exactly. Just and to that point, that bridge collapse, for example, affected so many other businesses. The ripple effect was crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, because we're in a very interconnected world, and
Yeah.
just going through that exercise, it might feel really intimidating at first, and you can gather people around, get one sheet of paper, and just talk about, or maybe talk about what's happened in a region like yours. What,
Mhm.
if you have trucking routes, just imagine, like you said, the ripple effect from all of that. And then, one key thing on that sort of checklist of what you have to test your plan. And, just writing something down. A lot of people will write something down, or maybe they need to do it for compliance, or the insurance company asks for it, or just writing something down is not really going to help you in a moment of crisis. Revisit it, test it, walk through different scenarios, and then communicate your plans, your business continuity plan with your employees. So they know, if this event happens, it's important to them because their paycheck's on the line, right? They've got mortgages, car payments, kids in school, right? It's very important to make sure that the employees are aware that there is a plan. They're working for a robust company that can survive a major setback.
Now, the entire walkthrough of identifying your business plan, business continuity plan, strategy is a service that Ikaru provides, where you would actually go in and help guide that discussion to come up with a checklist, to come up with the things that employees need to be trained on. Um, so, what kind of tests do you do to validate that the business continuity consulting process that you use will help support that business in the event of a disaster or unforeseen circumstances? So could you walk us through the tests that you do to ensure that the plan actually will work, and what kinds of things you test?
Yeah, no plan is ever going to be perfect, but I'm a big fan of tabletop exercises and
Mm.
just get people together and I like the idea of assigning different roles so people don't have their main role and maybe get the one most maybe dominant person out of the room because you
Mhm.
may have disaster strike and your main go-to person who kind of knows everything is in the hospital. You know, you never know what's going to happen. So when you do a tabletop exercise, it's really important that everybody has a voice, everybody's participating in it, and then you start asking questions like, well, what about this? And people's thoughts, when you get people comfortable talking, other people are going to come up with really great ideas, things to look at in terms of that. In terms of like when you get to the data side, it's very important to run, say, checks on your backup.
Mm,
Because one of the things that can happen in the cyber event, particularly like going back to the data piece of disaster recovery, is that if bad actors get on the network, one of the things they do very frequently is they disrupt the backup. And this is something sadly we've seen a lot where the backup, there's no failure report. It's just that maybe perhaps the entire backup set's been removed. Like
mm,
it ran successfully every day, so nobody's getting a warning, but nothing is being backed up, or a tiny fraction of what you have is being backed up. So really testing that, doing some tests to recover a file, just recover a random file, for example. For the businesses that we work with that have really mission critical services running, we'll actually run a full disaster recovery test on that, where we fail over to another server and then make sure that everything is still up and running. So we'll have, you know, the principals in the business, you know, okay, lo- log in like you would normally log in and see that everything is there. So, you know, there's the phrase trust but verify. I say verify and then
mm,
trust.
mm,
So
mm,
really, you know, asking those questions. Also for businesses, I would say, getting back to that law firm I mentioned earlier that came to us after a cyber event, I'd asked them, well, what protections did you have in place ahead of time? And they said, well, we assumed we were getting patches because I think you just get those. And they didn't really take a close look. They just assumed they had these things that they didn't really ask about or check. So I love when clients ask us and challenge us to, well, show me, you know, show me a recovery test, or I want to recover this file. Uh, it's very important just to not assume. I think people get intimidated by these topics. They don't want to think it ever is going to happen to them. And in a time of crisis, you need a simple game plan that you can follow. Not a book, not a 100-page book, because no one is going to read that when everybody is really stressed out about everything falling apart. It's just got to be a simple game plan, and even as basic as, do you have everybody's alternate phone numbers? You know,
mhm.
it
Yeah.
sounds so simple, but oh, they're all on the computer. Well, we can't access the computers, right? Do you
Mm,
have a way of getting a hold of everybody? Uh, and trying to get a lot of people involved in the conversation. Again, I will say one thing about communication plans and getting folks involved. It's very important for folks to realize, you know, just a simple thing like don't go on social media and really educate your employees around that, because folks, first of all, there should be a designated person doing communications, and second, uh, never talk about what you think. It's talk about what you know. And often it's very challenging to understand what's happened in a cyber event, for example, or in any kind of disaster. You may not know you don't know the full extent of the damage until you really dig in and look at it and do the forensics and all of that.
yeah, I
So
think,
what you
yeah.
speculation can really send you down a wrong path.
Yeah, yeah, that forensic analysis is pretty important. And as you pointed out, business continuity isn't just you get flooded and there's an issue. A ransomware attack could really help. Could really uh, shut down your business if you don't have a continuity plan in place. And it's not always you. I love that point that you made, that it might not just happen to you. It
Hmm.
could be one of your suppliers, one of your vendors. And if something happens to them, what is your reaction going to be to something there happening? Because it could affect your business pretty badly as well.
Yeah,
How often should you test the plan?
I would say a minimum of annually test the plan. I would say more frequent than that. We recommend that folks have security discussions on a frequent basis. A lot of people, it maybe takes a while for them to understand the why behind this. Like, why is only one person allowed to communicate? You may be in a situation where you have to communicate to the press. And another thing to think about in all this is disaster recovery business continuity. So we advise clients have proper insurance, that you're securing the assets of your business, including cybersecurity insurance. You may have a really great disaster recovery capability, but keep in mind that if your insurance company may not let you restore from backup until they've completed their forensic investigation. So you might be ready to go. You need to have alternate computers to be able to work on in that case. Because if you're basically going to be destroying evidence in that case. So really challenge, poke at the plan. What if this? Keep up to date with the news. Hey, this happened over here. What would we do in that case? If something like the bridge catastrophe in Maryland, what would we do in our business if our main route of transportation were shut down? So there's always events in the news. So I would say absolutely a minimum of an annual review is required. And I would say monthly, have these conversations, talk about
Mhm.
what's in the news.
That's true because the training for your staff, you might, if you do it once a
Yeah.
year, they might remember and then forget within days or a month. But if they're actually getting that repeated, it's almost like a fire drill test that we all used to have in
Yeah.
school when we were growing up, just to
Yeah.
make sure that you knew what to do, because that way it becomes habit, and you know where to go to, and
Yeah.
and all that kind of
And
training,
it,
same kind of training that like fighter pilots would go to if they have an issue with their jet. So
yeah,
yeah.
and it becomes familiar.
Hmm.
And when people are under severe stress, it's very hard to think clearly at that point. You just get into this kind of very narrow survival mode. And what I would recommend, so big organizations have big budgets, teams, CISOs, a full executive suite, and they can take a very comprehensive approach. But I would say for a smaller organization, local business in the Boston area, at your next staff meeting, just take out one sheet of paper and have a conversation about this and jot down a couple of ideas. That's the beginning. Don't get intimidated by it. Don't think, oh, we don't have the budget to do this.
Hmm.
It's Do we have everybody's phone number?
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
Basic things will make a very big difference. Uh, at this law firm I mentioned, had they not sorted things out, sort of the IT coordinator there did have a conversation with employees saying, roughly what was going on, and we're going to get through this. But had that not happened, you might get through the disaster, but all your employees didn't think you were going to survive and they went elsewhere. So think about it from all angles.
Yeah, that's a great point too. You want to make sure you have a company after you have such an event that could randomly happen. It's kind of like preparing yourself with your own insurance policy, in addition
Mhm.
to having cyber insurance too.
Yes.
So, Anne, talk about what the next steps would be for a company that wants to get this together. Um, Getting a checklist from you or some guidance, maybe even a phone call where you could help them get started to make sure that they're all prepared.
Yeah, I think reach out to us, set up an initial call. We'd be happy to go through if you have some questions about this. We do a lot of education at eCar. We do webinars monthly. We do a lot of writing. If you need a checklist just so you don't have a blank sheet of paper, we can help you get started with that. We also offer on the technology side comprehensive programs for local businesses to protect themselves. And we do a lot of roadmaps with people. Uh, our webinars are open to the public, so please join anytime.
Excellent. Great tips to help businesses in the Boston area with their business continuity planning. Thanks again, Anne.
Yeah, thank you so much, Raj.